Hello, guys.
Hello.
We are back.
We're back, and this is our
week.
20th episode. I can't believe we made it, but we're here to 20 freaking episodes. So
That's
thank you all
insane.
that have been loyal listeners, watchers, new watchers, because we're on YouTube. So check us out, SOS with Molly and Alyssa on YouTube. Link in our Instagram at the SOS Pod. Just a little little tag.
It's just a little plug.
Today we have an amazing guest. I'm so excited for you guys to join us in this conversation with him because, it's really relevant. You know, me and Molly, we're both artists. I'm an actor, and I know being in LA and living that actor life, it is a struggle, to say the least. And in different kinds of ways, in ways that you might not really know about. You might think about how stereotypically awful rejection is all the time. And and I feel like this conversation can help people that want to get into the industry who might be struggling
also
with mental
people-
health too. So today we have Marco James.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us, Marco.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about all those things you just mentioned. I think collectively we probably have a great amount of stories to share for a lot of people who might be still figuring out if they want to do it or what it really is like, and it's
And for people who are in it who might think that they're alone in some of these situations when
yes, I
really that's not the
completely
case.
agree. Right, yeah, it's a very isolating thing, right? It's so funny that being an artist is this really beautiful and creative community where you kind of show up to a job and kind of pour your guts out, even being a musician or being an actor, whatever it is. But then at the same time, it can be very isolating. So I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think that we could probably all agree.
So I want to kind of start from the beginning. Where did you grow up, and then how did you kind of okay, acting? This is what I want to do. Where did you get bit by the bug, or how did you get bit by the bug?
Yeah. So I grew up in Orange County, which is where I am in right now. I grew up in Irvine, California. I kind of split between Huntington and Irvine, which is essentially just down the road from each other here. I was a very late bloomer, so that's just I think a nice way of saying that I was kind of in high school. I'll put it this way: in high school, I had skin tight jeans, cut off death metal shirts, and I had greasy hair down to my shoulders, right?
What?
And I just would go to punk shows, and I always had my skateboard, and so I think I needed X amount of credits to graduate, so I took a drama program because I just always was fascinated. It always was an alien world. Film was always this thing that I could never quite understand, but it was always so personal when I watched a movie or I watched a performance that was, you couldn't put your finger on why you connected so much to it. And so it was an intro sort of acting class, and I was okay. And for me it was music. I was going to be this punk rock legend.
Really?
And yeah, just be this grunge rock death metal guy, and that was it. And I took an acting class, and I don't know what it was about when I left, because it was a mess. Obviously, it's your first walk into the fray. But I felt okay, when I left, I felt like I had a safety net for a lot of things I was feeling at the time, alone, feeling anxious, feelings of a lot of depression in there too, towards the end of high school. I just didn't have a clique. I wasn't a jock, but I got along with jocks, and I kind of got along with everybody, but I didn't have this thing where it seemed like everybody had a plan to do something. Towards the end of high school, it was everyone was oh yeah, I already got this, or I'm already here, and this has kind of already been figured out since freshman year, and I was fuck, man, I don't want to pump gas or something. So I took a class, and that was the intro to, okay, what else could there be
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was at a pretty prestigious like theater program, South Coast Repertory, which down here
Yeah.
puts on really wonderful productions. So it was specific to film and television. It was just this kind of really wonderful little group of like 6 to 8 people, and we had no idea what we were doing, and it was just this kind of basic overview of what it was like to be an actor, or to audition too, which was really cool. So it was like it was like, what the hell is this? You know, here's a piece of paper, figure it out. So yeah,
And-
that was
and when
kind of
did you-
like this.
When did you move to LA? Like, when did you
Shortly
make
after,
that?
so I was there at 20, I think. So yeah, pretty fresh out of the gate, because that puts me at like 12 years now. So 20 years old, 21 really, when I at the time it was before all this like social media, right? It was before like, we just kind of really had Facebook. So I would go on to like, at the time, at just Backstage and like IMDb, and like they were like kind of really in their like, not infancy, but like it was really not what it obviously is today, where you can just be like, oh, here's a producer's email, here's that, here's this. I was just mass emailing any agency. I don't recommend doing this now. I was just like, let's do this, and I sent probably like 500 emails with a headshot, no credits, no anything, nothing but like, I looked probably 12, and next thing you know, one guy called me after months and months of doing this. One guy called me, and he said, told me to come meet him at an agency, and he gave me a script in the waiting room, like a cold read, and then about 30 minutes later, I had my first agent. So
Wow.
that was not knowing anybody. I didn't know anybody who was an actor. None of my family members knew what to do. So that was, at the time I was like, oh yeah, this is like cool. I did not realize at the time how big of a deal that actually was. Walking into this really posh place, I think it was Buckwald.
Oh yeah.
Buckwald Agency.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I was like, that was like the thing. So that was my I guess initiation into this whole thing, and I feel like I never took it for granted. It was just my experience. So
Yeah.
everyone was like, you know, went to these incredible institutions to learn how to be an actor, get, you know, referrals and all these things that they had worked so hard for to not get that. You know, I just was very lucky at that time in my life, and so I'm very grateful. But I do realize that it was a shot in the dark. So
Yeah.
I would have kept going, but that hit when it hit, and it just, I wouldn't say that's when my like life changed, but it was, okay, now you're a professional, like you got to show up and do it now.
So when did
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of Vampire Diaries, and I'm sure people listening have watched that show. But what year did that show start? Like, when did you come on? Because was it
I
a couple
didn't come
years
on
after
for a
that?
while,
Oh.
and what's actually really it started it was right after Twilight, when that phrase for the vampire thing came out. So that was actually one of my first auditions, was the pilot for Vampire Diaries.
Oh my
Really?
god.
And I was so green. I was so nervous. I was so
Who
scared.
did you audition for?
Stefan,
Oh.
for Paul Wesley's role. So I think
Yeah.
at the time he must have been 27 or 28, and I think I was 21 or 22.
Yeah.
And then so kind of smash cut to a couple years later, what actually ended up happening was, by that time, I came into it in the 6th season of the show. By that time, I had, no joke, I had physically auditioned for producers, creators, writers in person. This is being nice, at least 50
Jesus. Over those years.
over those years.
Oh my gosh.
so
they're like, we have to get it. We have to figure out something for him.
or I in my like morbid mind, I was like, oh, they're just loving like toying with me at this point. Like this is
No, I feel like they wouldn't waste their time if they weren't really trying to figure out a good fit for you, for sure.
Right. It was but I had to grow so much as an actor to get to really get to that point where I could do it. You know, like it was like there's so many people that show up and like, you know, are quote unquote, you know, like good looking or have this thing about them or whatever, but there is really like a discipline that is needed and a cadence specific to shows. That's why I always tell people, like, if you're auditioning for something, don't be like, oh well, it's on the CW, like no, whatever, like just take, even if just watch one episode. Yep. You have to watch the cadence. You have to know exactly what realm you're playing in, and then you show up and you can play in that world. And they don't take you. They take you seriously as soon as you walk in, because you're like embracing the world. Yeah. Even if you feel like the drama is heightened, if you feel like, oh god, this is very soapy, if this is whatever it is, if you want the job, like you gotta you really do have to lean into like the medium. Excuse me, that you're going out for. So I had a lot. I was very in those years. I mean, I literally went from being an extra, having like being a stand-in, to like half a line, to like one line, 2 lines. Yeah. To, you know, so at that point I had a solid amount of 1 line, 2 line, 3, 4. Like it was this really slow
build.
Burn.
Yeah. And what were was your family like really supportive of you going after this, or did it take a while? Did it take getting those 4 lines for them to be like, okay, maybe I get it? You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's like, you have to show me what you're doing.
Totally. I was fortunate enough that I think they were just excited, to be honest with you. I think they were just excited that I found something that I was really excited about.
Yeah.
And I think I went through a lot of high school trying to kind of find what it was that I was supposed to be excited about, and I wasn't really, but this was like to the end, like okay, like whatever you got, I'll take it and I'll go through it and I'll do it. So like I said, that I think when I decided to show up for it and that was 110%, then it was like, okay, like there was no question. So
yeah.
I think that mindset is very important for a lot of people who are coming into the creative business. Is just like, it's late nights and it's early mornings and it's stressful, and it's like there are people who, I mean, I've auditioned for big directors before who will take a phone call halfway through your read.
Wow.
You know, will pop open their phone, thank you, you know, bye, or good job, and not even look up from the thing.
That's crazy, because that is,
I don't know
like,
if you guys have seen La La Land.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, it's La La Land.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been in those situations over the years, and it's very, it makes you feel this big, right? Like you know, like I don't know, you know, working in, like, say you work at a bar or a restaurant, and you're there till midnight, and your audition's at 10 a.m. and you got the audition while you were at work, so you didn't have time to read till you get home. Yep. Another 2 hours or whatever to actually go over it. Yep. And then you gotta, LA, you gotta plan an extra 2 hours to find the freaking parking if there's traffic, so it, by the time you actually get there and do it, like the commitment has already been so large, and I think that's what people I have to expect with this, is like, it's not like, oh, it's like this kind of really like mellow thing and you show up and you just do it and you leave. And it's like, so much of it is all the stuff that happens outside of the, like, at most probably 5 minutes you might be in a room. Right. But, the 6 to 8 hours, 2 hours of reading, maybe watching some of whatever show you're going out for, like I said, so you can understand.
And this is like after you get home from work, for example, where you've done like an 8-hour shift at a restaurant, and you get home at maybe like 12:30, 1 a.m. and it's after that. And then you have to see, this is the thing for me in music. This is completely foreign, because I'm not going out on auditions. Like, I'm not just the thing that people people who aren't in entertainment always lump the two together, like, oh, well, film and music. And I've always been like, well, since I moved out to LA, because I was naive. I thought it'd be like 50% musicians, 50% actors. Oh, this is like, I'm like, oh, it's like 95 and 5% musician from like who I was meeting.
Yeah.
All my friends are actors. Everybody, I'm like the only one in restaurants I've worked at. I'm like, oh, no one else is a musician. Everyone's an actor. And so then I've learned that like when I talk to people about the process who aren't actors, I'm like, you know what? It's so daunting to me because basically what you're doing is you're going into a room. Like I'd show up at an audition where everybody is 5'7", brown hair, green eyes, looks like me, reading the same lines as me. Like, and then how the hell am I supposed to stand out? I'm not even reading lines that as a musician, if I'm trying to build a following, if I don't have a band, before I had a manager, like any of those, a producer, anything, I can still write my songs in my room, book a show by myself, take my keyboard to the venue, put on a show by myself with my own music that I wrote. I don't have to, I'm not like morphing into these things with everyone who looks just like me. It's so intimidating.
You have the creative freedom as a musician, which I think is such a powerful thing that like you can go and express, even if it's to 2 or 3 people, if you just need to like kind of get it out, if you just want to hang out with your friends and like, have a chill night.
And if I want to show people like what I see myself doing, what kind of music I see myself doing, I write it and I sing it. You guys can't be like, well, I see myself as this type of actor. I'm only going to take these kind of, if you get a call for a commercial or for like, if you're trying to do comedy and you get a drama, you're just like, and you're reading the same lines as everyone else. It just is like, I have so much admiration for the type of, no industry like this is easy. Music has it's hard as hell, but like that aspect of it is not the same. And I'm just in awe of you guys for just like sitting in a room and having people like I've played shows at, places where people are milling around, a bar or a restaurant, and people aren't paying attention, but it's not the same as like, I'm literally sitting in front of you to get your approval and you're just gonna cut me off and pull out your phone and say next, thank you.
And it's like we could, there are a lot of actors that will write themselves things that, will go to YouTube, will make a web series, will.
But you can't do it on your own. That's the thing. I can literally go put on a show by myself.
Like if you want to do it right, and you also need to have that kind of what's the word? Not authority, that discipline. To want it right for yourself, because it's so hard. Anybody can be like, yes, I'm going to write myself, but it's like you're going to sit at a blank screen for hours and you're like, I have no idea.
Also,
that's why I'm an actor, not a writer.
Unless it's a monologue, unless it's a monologue, you need other people involved. Yeah. So like if you write yourself into a script, you have other characters, you need people to film it. That's the part I'm saying where like it's
in order to get to that point, you have to have worked your way up the other way, because also all that stuff's expensive, right?
Yeah.
It's like all those resources and stuff that you can have, and we all have very creative like friends and stuff, and you can collaborate, and it's great. And then when it comes time to make it, I think the game plan for a lot of us, like working our way up and coming up, is to get to that point, and then you can afford to take a little more control of your career, and you can guide it. Just a little sort of tidbit on specifically that audition, because I would love for people to know how ridiculous this story is. I was working at Bottega Louie in downtown, and at the time I booked a show, and
You're talking Vampire Diaries?
What's that?
Vampire Diaries?
Yes. And so I'd been in all these times, like I was saying earlier, right? So at this point, I'm sitting in traffic. It's like a Friday. It sucks. It's hot. I just was like over this day, and I'm on my way to work. My phone rings, and my manager at the time is like, "Hey, Vampires wants to see you tomorrow morning." And I'm like, "Oh, of course they do. Like, fuck everything. Like, I'm already like in a bad mood. I've every type of archetype of a character. I've done accents. I've been like flamboyant, like broody. I've been like anything that they've needed. I've done it, and it's taxing. So it's like continually trying to it's like trying to like date someone, and it's just it's just not happening,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, you're trying so hard. So I finally respectfully was like, look, I am so grateful for the opportunity, but mentally and emotionally, just as a creative person who is already deals with his own sort of world of jitters and you know, a little bit of depression and things like that. This is a big deal for someone like me. This like, I don't just go, okay, like, and then leave the room. And, you know, for me, it's like, now that this has been such an ongoing engagement between us two, you continually say, no, like, we'll come back, but no.
It's
no.
just like,
It starts to really weigh. So I was like, you know what, let's just put this office aside for now, as grateful as I am, and we'll just focus on the next set of whatever comes our way.
Yeah.
And so he was like, listen, just go on this one. Just one more for me. And I won't push this office on you again. Right?
Yeah.
He's like, was like, just this one. Because I was just in a mood that day. Just a lot was happening. And it was, I think I had gone on the same, like, the same, for the same show, like just a week before.
Oh
so
my
I was
God.
still, like, I was still feeling it. At that point, it was starting to be like every week, every 2 weeks. And it for like a month or two straight. And it was starting to feel a bit silly, if I may put it. And maybe at the time it wasn't me feeling like, oh, they should just give it to me or whatever. I was just like, listen, if this isn't going to work,
Right.
I don't
Just
know how much I can emotionally
set
take,
me free.
Yeah.
because this is such an awesome opportunity, and I'm right there, and you guys are like,
Yeah, it's
right?
one thing if it was
nah.
like 3 or 4 times, you know, they had you in.
It was
but
just a continual thing. So in my head at the time, I mean, I just, for me, it wasn't ego. It was just, it was feeling not, I didn't want to take it into my personal life feeling like, oh, this keeps really messing with my head,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
you're not good enough, but we'll keep like putting you through it, you know?
Right.
So of course I get the dialogue like we're talking about. I get the script while I'm at work, so I can't read it. Get home, and it's nothing but medical jargon. Like I'm like 5 pages of any big textbook. I played a young doctor. Any big textbook word, and I just started laughing, and I was like, "This is the most ridiculous." It's all, you know. It's always there's always a story happening in these things, but in this specific thing, it was like almost like copy and paste, like a Wikipedia, like, or a dictionary of, like, you know, a
this
doctor's
is like
office.
a question that, because I'm obviously not an actor, this is like a dumb question, but so when you guys, so you get the script like the night before, are you expected to have it completely memorized?
No, please go for it.
No. I was gonna say
we're on the same.
it's ideal.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, but is it like
ideal.
looked down upon if you don't?
No, you should have the
If
copy
you
in your
can,
hand.
I will always, if you can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, have the
If
copy in
you-
your hand and like look up, but make sure you give at least like this is the tip that I always heard is like the beginning give eye contact and at the end of the line give eye contact. Like at least have the beginning and the
Yes,
middle of your lines. You know, if you have 3 sentences, make
You
sure the
want to
first
look
and
as
the last
confident
sentence.
as possible. Yeah, and it's not always going to happen. And in this case, I just like you're saying, that's the route I went. Like I brought my page in with me. If it wasn't as aggressive on words that I'm not familiar with,
Right.
because science and math is not my world at all.
Right.
Just drown in it, which was so weird. I mean, I was just going on Google Translate. I was just trying to figure out what they sounded like in my mouth, you know, like so I could like roll it around a little bit, because it just didn't make sense. Anyway, there was no specification on what the character would be. It was very brief, right? It was just like a guy who's here. He's a doctor. That was all I knew. And so I got there, and you know, it's like early, like I was driving and all this stuff, and I'm already kind of a little ticked because I'm like, I've seen this office so much recently, and
This
then
is for just like a guest star, or did they say it was recurring?
they didn't say anything.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so it was the most brief like description of like what it would be that I'd ever seen. It was almost. And then so I get in there. And no one looked like me. This was the weird part. I got in and no one looked like me. Everyone looked like the all-American, like
blonde hair,
perfect
blue eye.
student. Yeah, everyone looked like. And so then, and like I was wearing like what I wear you know, and they were like there was one guy who was in like an actual like
Lab
a coat.
coat.
Yes,
The doctor's
yes,
coat, yeah.
and a stethoscope, right?
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, "This got to be fucking joking! Like, this is not."
Oh my god, always, yeah.
So I go in, and in my head, I'm like, I'm really just gonna barf this out as best I can. And in my head, I'm going, I never have to come back here again. I made the deal with my folks. I can focus on other stuff and make peace with this office. So it felt a little tumultuous.
Yeah.
So I think I subconsciously almost had not an attitude, but I think an energy that was like, I don't give a fuck if you hire me or not.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't need you.
Like you were released
And the second
from that.
the second I leave this room, I never have to see you again.
Immediate
there was
control
this
and
kind of,
power. Yeah.
I think this weird shift, and I shit you not, it was 2 days later, hey, you're going to be on a plane in a couple days, and you're going to be Nina Dobrev's love interest, and you're going to be living in Atlanta. And it was like, oh, okay. Like none of that
Wow.
was said anywhere. I had no idea. I didn't know if it was a one-liner. I didn't know if it was just a guest star. I didn't know that it would be recurring. I didn't know that would be something that would be really defining of my
show.
sort of mid-20s career experience.
That's
So
crazy.
it's weird. And then next thing you're on a plane and it still gives me chills because it was so many years before that of hard work that for that show specifically,
Yeah.
of like not sleeping, of learning and that it was almost, I will never say that I didn't prepare because that's just, I think what innately you just do. It's just like being a detective. Every time you get a script, that's like your responsibility. But it wasn't something that I was like, oh, man, I hope this works out. Like, I need this. I
Right,
need
right.
this. You know, my job sucks and I haven't worked in a while and blah, blah, you know, that you do as an artist when you're like not hitting certain years or months. And so it was something that I think now is ingrained in my DNA, that hopefully that anyone who is listening, that you can still have your power in an audition.
Yeah.
And you don't have to always be what comes to your head, like what you think that they need you to be. If I don't know if that makes sense.
No,
but,
yeah, it's
you know what?
having control and not being defeated.
Right.
Yeah.
And like even in
you're allowed to be bold with your choices. You're allowed to be you're allowed to have your own unique. This is what I always say, and it took me a while to learn this too, is that if you give 110% and you do take the time and you learn it and you read it and you read it again and you read it 100 times and you know your shit, you can show up and have some sense of opinion about the piece. If you're just kind of like, oh, I'm like one of these guys who like gets a script and I'll look at it once and it's like, oh, I'm so good looking that they'll hire me, like attitude who I've met along the years, that might work for a year or two. But if you want any sort of gravity as an artist, especially just in these rooms, you know, I think discipline. I think it was Robert Downey Jr. who said that he learns it frontwards and backwards, and so that he never skips it. He can say it back and forth without skipping a beat, backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
So I just think that the old school sort of mindset of just people like, oh yeah, well of course I'd learn my lines. Well, it's like sometimes you get to an audition, you're like, I think, yeah, no, I got it. And then you get there and it's like the nerves are going, your mind's going, the other people are in the room are getting into your head, and it takes you out of it, you know? So
That's a very true. I think that's like a completely true thread that runs through all disciplines of art, because that is a conversation I have in music all the time, especially in today's world where like anybody can record themselves on their phone or like, you know, basic software and put a song out on whatever online and release another thing next week. Like anybody can do that and everybody can have a photo shoot and look good. But it's this thing that is, when you said like an old school mentality, it's really what you do in your own time that's not on camera, that's not in front of people, it's not flashy. How much work are you willing to put into your actual craft? Like when I have learned about work ethic too is when I first started in LA, my vocal practice, which was good. It was working for me, but it was like it's evolved because what I used to do is just sing through my songs over and over and over. And like, you know, the parts I was like, oh, I need to work on that part. I'd work on it, but I just keep singing the song over and over and over. That's a good thing to do. But what I've learned now is like I will spend literally I feel bad for my neighbors sometimes because I'm like there's like 3 words that I'm like trying to get this down. I've spent 2.5 hours sitting on my kitchen counter playing this thing on loop, just like da, 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 over and over and over, and it is not like glamorous, and it doesn't look cool, and it's not like, and I sound like shit, you know what I mean? And it's just like
that's the thing, right? That's what I'm talking about. It's because you have a need to get it right, and that's your responsibility as an artist.
Yeah, it's your responsibility, and what people see then is the part that they want to emulate after you've done that shit, and you're just like
you've worked so hard on that.
Yeah,
you know, like and it some of the best pieces of work that I've done have been results of being. I always tell people, just for yourself, for your own, especially actors on a set, be so overly prepared that you're just annoyed that you're like you just want to get it done. You know, like be that ready at any time, at all times, because I can't tell you how many times like an AD, like a first assistant director will come, you know, and they're like the generals of the set. They, you know, they're the guys who really keep the pace going. And how many times like someone will come up and be like, real quick, in this scene, what are you doing? You know, and it has so many times people be like, just know all times what you're doing in a scene. Always have the answer, because it makes their job easier, and then that costs them less money to make. And if you fucking do that, if you show up and do that every time, and you don't have a sort of an ego about it, like guess what? You get to keep coming back because you're saving them money. They don't have to think twice about you, especially when you're recurring, like, or you're a guest star, or you're not one of the, you know, the big show dogs. You're the guest in the home, right?
Yeah.
The less attention that you bring to yourself, and the whole operation goes smoothly, it's almost like you're just part of it, and but you don't get like all the attention, and you don't get like, you just kind of sneak in job. You don't over socialize. You don't bug the other cast people. You don't act like a fan person. Don't. It's kind of like you don't speak when spoken to. Respectful. I always say you show up early. You stay as late as they need you to. You never ask if you can leave. Sometimes that means you're sitting in a room for 6 to 8 hours before they need you, and you just have to be okay with that. And you know what? You have to be excited about it. And it's tedious, and sometimes they're really long days, and it's not this really cool thing. But it's like you're there and you're doing it. Yeah. You know? And so
are those things that you learned before booking that, or is that something you had to learn as you were filming with them?
That one I had to be very I had to learn everyone was very wonderful, by the way. Everyone was very welcoming. But we all are there collectively to do the job. So you want to hit your mark and say your line. You don't want to have them redirect you. You don't want to have to. Nerves are okay. Nerves are welcomed. It is overwhelming. You come into a big show and it's 6th season. It's already really well oiled. It's really like almost like to them it's just like another day. You know, but for you it's this big thing. I think as you keep trying to think. I think it was Michael Caine who said no one likes inexperience. Only, I think, distasteful inexperience was the quote. And I think what I gained, I honestly, so he has, I don't know if, Alyssa, if you read this, it's The Acting in Film by Michael Caine. I call it my creative Bible. It is, that book. I mean, I love Michael Caine. Yeah. It's a how to essentially be on a set. It's not how to be a good actor, how to be a good, like, performer, but it's like, you know, how to hit your mark without looking at it. You know, learn your lines. If anything, just say your goddamn lines and hit your mark. and half the time that's okay, that's enough, and you don't realize that through osmosis, through being on a set in the wardrobe around the other people, you end up really showing up and doing it, and it doesn't have to be, you know, this like
overthought.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
that's always sorry.
Yeah, it's no. You're totally fine. It's that's the exact word. Overthinking, I think, kills a lot of really amazing experiences you can have as an actor on a set.
100%. As an artist, like in general, like overthinking things will get you so out of here. Or in here when everything is happening around you. And for me, and I'm sure for a lot of different artists or people in general, like why I got into acting was because I had such a wild imagination. And as a child, I could get there and I could do it. And the older I get and the more rejection I see, or just like the world in general, you lose that connection to your imagination. And to live there means to get out of here.
And you also lose that like trust in your instinct and in your gift, because there's a different, you can't just rely on your gift. Of course, you have to learn the craft and the technique. And so a lot of times what happens when you start to learn the technique is you start to detach from your initial, just the gift that you have, but it's necessary to learn the technique. So then and that requires thinking. And so then it's this weird thing of you have to deconstruct everything. Like for me, this is what I found with music. I had to deconstruct everything that I had built, that I thought I knew about myself as an artist, and then realize all this shit that like, oh my God, I didn't know. I need to be, and get really technical with it, and really like almost mathematical in this obnoxious way where it took the fun out of it. But I have to learn these things. And then after you get, then the process is bringing back, it's like going backwards. Like then you have to bring back the joy the like, where you don't think about, it's this, Kip was just telling me, it's a Jackie Chan quote. I think his like trainer was telling him like, why are you still working on this? Your technique is perfect. And he was like, well, the point is to get to the spot where, where there is no technique.
Yes.
So it's like basically, you can work on it and get your technique perfect, but the goal is to get to the point where there is no technique. You are like when you said Marco, like through osmosis, you just become that.
Yes.
But it's such a long process.
You made a really good point though, by like, you made a really good point with the discipline that it takes to get to a certain point creatively allows you to, when you go to work, you are so comfortable in the skin of the world that you're living in, that you're showing up to today, that you aren't bothered with, oh fuck, what's that line? Or wait, who is this person to me again? Or what character are you? Or you just, it's so there that it's you. The goal is always to be so prepared that it looks like you're not trying.
Right.
And pros do that. I've been lucky enough to, my first series was called The Client List, and that was on Lifetime.
Oh my gosh! Wait, that sounds familiar. Who was in that?
Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Oh.
Yeah.
And, I think I've seen
it was a really, that for me was one of the best educations I've had just on a job. That was the kind of thing where it was like a guest star role that, like I said, not tooting anything or like talking it up, but because of the things that I learned by reading that Michael Caine book mainly, but because of watching how the professionals show up and do it, from like doing years of extra work. I remember I used to watch George Clooney. He's like Brad Pitt. I would just, Al Pacino. Same thing. It was all these like really basic rules that you show up and you just know that what you have to do that day, and then the other stuff becomes. And so through doing that, I ended up doing a whole season of that show. Really? I was only supposed to be there for 5 seconds, and because it was like, hey, we like this dynamic that's slowly building between the two, like my character and another character. It was supposed to be this really kind of short-lived thing. Because that was happening sort of naturally, because I showed up every day and I just kind of kept my mouth shut and I did what I needed to do, that taught me a great discipline in knowing when to speak, being respectful, doing the job. They say cut, go sit in your chair or wherever you go, and you do the same thing, and you read a book or you put on music. You don't overly fraternize. You don't. It's not your home unless obviously you're the guy on the billboard or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But if you're just, it's a very humbling experience. But if you can do it, people, you know how like when you first, I don't know, when you like first, I'm trying to think of like a nice analogy for it, but like when you, yeah, maybe it is like, okay, here we go. Like if you're like your significant other, you're meeting their family, sometimes like there's always maybe that one or two people that started off really kind of cold or maybe a little detached just because you're the next person that they're dating or whatever, and then it becomes really serious and it takes time for them to warm up to you. That's kind of how being a guest on a show is. It takes some people, you think they hate you, right? You're like, oh my god, I saw the way that guy looked at me, or I'm out of here tomorrow. But it's just and then you realize that if they are talking to you like that, or if you are kind of in the conversation kind of as a throwaway, and you don't take much of their time or effort, which is boils down to money and all that, production time, costs or whatever, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
If they're constantly bringing your name up, or they're constantly redirecting you, or you're constantly, I don't care if you like, I think this is a big thing for people who might be starting out with like guest stars, co-stars, 1-line, 2-line. It's going to sound harsh and I don't mean it to, but if whatever that line or 2 lines or 3 lines you have in that episode, I don't care if it doesn't make any sense to you. Yeah. I don't care if you don't like it. I don't care if it's bad. I've said plenty of bad lines before. Say it, and you just go home. Just say it.
Yeah.
You don't bring it up. It's not your place to like, can I speak to a writer? Why am I?
No,
I would never say
God.
this. Excuse me. You just say it and you be grateful for that opportunity. And then next time you get to say 4 lines, and the next time you get to say 5 lines. And at least
because you're in their house. Yeah, you're not.
Yes,
you're there to make everyone else, the other cast, look good. Like you're basically when you're on one line,
their show.
You're furniture.
It's their show, and so I mean, I've met people who it's really hard for they want to be immediately the person, and I don't know. I think I just was lucky enough that in my head I never wanted to be. I always. For me, that wasn't the thing to get involved.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, I think some people have trouble with that. But
well, it's interesting, like what you said about even your audition process but I'm learning, I mean, there's a common theme, and it's like everything is about the balance of 2 things, because your audition, for lack of a better word, it wasn't like you respected them and what they're doing, but it's almost like I don't give a fuck anymore. I have nothing to lose. I'm going to go home. And so you need that, but then mixed with, then you book it, and then you have this humility and this respect for the situation that you're not, you don't come in with like I don't give a fuck attitude, of course. So it's like this balance
you're like, oh crap.
Right. But it's interesting because sometimes what is needed to break through that first thing is for you to release yourself from how much you care. And it's weird because when it's your passion, you can't, because it's your passion. But I had like one moment in college on stage where I was in the middle of a song, and I was so tired of like wondering what people were like, do they like this, or is this affecting them, or like, what do they, I remember where I was standing on stage, and I just had this thought of like, and it wasn't like a screw you to the audience, but it was like a shift change in my head where I was like, no, I'm telling you something. Like you're listening to me. The way that you receive it isn't my responsibility. I'm telling you something. And it just like gave me this, I was like, yeah, this is my minute to tell you something. Yeah. When I'm done, you can hate it or whatever. But like right now is for me to tell you something. And it's kind of when you said that moment about your audition, it reminded me of that. And it released me from this, like, it's not saying I don't care about the audience. It's not saying I don't care about the art. It's just this, like, I'm not tied up in like, what are they going to think?
Yes, you're free from like needing the validation.
Yeah.
And we for being such sort of, for the most part, sensitive folk, being more creative, obviously, we sometimes are expected to be so like malleable to like it's okay to like find, like when you find, like you're saying, you find that moment, you find like that piece or this attitude that you, not an attitude, but like a it's okay to be bold. You know? It's okay to be like, it's okay to be fearless. It's okay to just make sure that you have sort of the work behind it,
right,
in terms of like, oh yeah, I stayed up all night and I learned this, and I can come in with this sort of you know. And you know what's really great is sometimes I've gone in front of a director and I've felt so connected to a role that, you know, and let's say I was lucky enough to have more than a day, like 2 days or maybe 3. Oh my God, that's like a dream come true with the words. And I could sit there and like put together my little, like, you know, my little background of the character and like connect to it and like and feel so connected to the piece that if I made a decision that maybe wasn't what the norm would be, like that if a director was like, oh, what, you know, what were you thinking, why'd you do that, I could 110% explain why I did this one thing in a scene, and not just do it because, oh, that might be interesting or different. Be like, okay, right, if A, B, and C is why I reacted this way, you know. And sometimes I don't know if, Alyssa, if you've noticed, like you go into an audition room and like the walls are like paper thin and you can hear everybody's audition and it's the same.
It's the same.
I love that feeling.
Or when you have to get to a certain emotional moment and you can hear everybody get to that moment, like, why? If that's the, you know, sorry for the mic.
Yeah, and then everyone walks out like with their head in their hands and they're like, oh my God. It's like so ridiculous.
So ridiculous.
And then I love when I get to go to those and everyone's done the same thing and I've like made a decision prior that was super different.
Yes. Or I change it. Or if it's just like, you know, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I'm like, oh, I was going to do the same thing that they're doing. I'm fucking changing it right now.
Yeah. And I'm going to commit to this, like this other thing just to be different.
Yep.
Because it's like listening to a god, like, you know, I feel for these, you have to think about, you know,
the casting directors.
These cast directors have been sitting for hours listening to people that look pretty much the same, who sound the same,
saying
who
the
are all
same
reading
lines.
the same. And it's like, it's daunting. It's a really tough thing. And the thing that was always like kept me going was the idea that like I always found like approval for myself, especially speaking from like a mental health standpoint, especially dealing with like a generalized anxiety disorder. It's not like a really aggressive, but it's just always been a part of me that I didn't understand until much later in life, why I analyze things the way I do, why I go into these places in my head that I do, and you know, I'm sure people can relate to that. But I found that through being an actor, through like certain jobs and little, like the most mundane thing, line or whatever, when you have complete connection to something you're doing, and let's say music too, like if you're just, sometimes it's like a blip, it's like a 1 or 2, 3 second moment of like bliss that gets me to the next job.
That's all it is for us sometimes. It is just that 2-second blip of bliss.
That's it. And it's like you go home and it's like you're on this, like you can't explain it to people because you don't want to sound like a dick because you just shot this this thing. Right. And people are like, oh yeah, cool buddy, like thanks.
Or it's an audition that you like knew that you nailed in some way too, that I'll get a high from.
You did the thing, right? And like, yeah, I always found one on a job that carried me to the next job, and it could be just a personal win, like something no one would notice, but it was difficult. There's always one thing at work, when I get to work, that I have difficulty with, and I have to assess it right away. And it's different on the day. Sometimes my hands, my eyes, and my feet don't want to like work, so I don't like. I know I'm not going to hit the mark right that day, so I have to work harder that day. Make it look effortless. And if no one comes up and says, dude, you can't hit a mark, you know what I mean, then like I won. It's like a very small thing. Like, and then so if anything comes out of it as an actor is like creatively, then that's like a super win.
Right.
You know, it's like it's a very tedious job, and anything you do, I'll put it this way, I remember shooting a Thanksgiving scene with, I think there were 8 people at a feast, right, for Thanksgiving. mean, it was probably maybe a 2-minute scene. It took 2 16-hour days to shoot.
Oh my
Jesus.
God.
So that's
funny.
And I remember making the mistake of like eating like my hungry ass was there's some really good food on the table. So I was like these really good like muffins, and I was like chewing on one at the top of the scene and just not thinking. And so I had to do that
Every
all
time?
day, dude, every time, even if I wasn't on camera, because I know that's the level of
That's
like commitment they
funny.
want. So
Yep.
eventually it just became this like really this mime, and I was just like I will never eat in the scene unless you know it's for one of the big dogs or if it's absolutely necessary. But I did that to myself, so I
That's
I
so
had to accept
funny.
that fate.
Damn.
Just a muffin all day, man. Just buttery, like southern fried muffin goodness.
Oh my God.
And no one told me otherwise. It's like they let me learn the hard way.
Oh my God.
No one was like, dude, I don't know if you want to do that for the next
Keep
2
doing
days.
it. Yeah, for 16
And-
hours.
Twice.
Just sickening.
So with Vampire Diaries, like you definitely started garnering like a fan base. Like I can even see it, and I knew it from working with you. Like there was people that like would be excited to see you, or you would go on these. Weren't there like those conventions too that you went to?
Yeah, we did a lot of like conventions after we got to work, which was really cool, and you get to go answer questions and like
Yes. So how did
so-
like you're you're very open about your anxiety and how did you navigate both having that anxiety but also like having people like love you? You know what I mean? It's like a weird way to put
mean,
it.
I very much appreciate that. I think wow. I think
Like,
for
did
me
it help?
it became what's that?
Did it help? Like, or did you know?
There were times where it absolutely helped, and then there were times where like I remember just feeling like I couldn't breathe, and I felt like I was like out of body. Sorry, I lost the word, but I felt like I think because I felt like okay, I'm grateful for this job, and I don't let it define me. I was there, half a season, really great storyline, but I'm not one of the
Right.
guy. You know what I mean? So, my anxiety took me down a road of like, I just want to speak when I'm spoken to. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be like, hey.
Did it take you to like imposter syndrome?
What is imposter syndrome?
That's what is it you said?
Yeah.
Oh, I meant,
I'm
like,
curious,
did it
'cause
make
I've
you
heard this
feel
phrase
like-
before, and I feel like I might know, but if you could refresh my memory, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, I meant like where you are very much, you've earned where you are, and like you did the work and you got that role, and but like you still feel like a fraud somehow. Like whether it's because whether it's like I'm not a main character, I'm still a server in LA, like, but you very much earned that.
Thank you. That was a very big lesson, and eventually will become part of my SOS moment. But it very much was like there was a dichotomy there, because when I felt this really wonderful thing, which was so great, like that was, and I guess we'll dive into it. I'm here, like it's so basically.
You can go for it.
I got like. For me, my career progressed, like I said, 1 line to 2 line, 3 line, 4 line, guest star, co-star, guest star, recurring, from bottom to top. And that was a really great education. And I watched some really talented, wonderful people that I had worked with kind of already had jobs lined up. So when we were reaching our end run of it, and they were getting this. It was like, okay, this is the CW recycles their actors, and this is just the beginning, and I'm gonna go meet with the network. Never happened. Came home, phone didn't really ring, and I had this thing where I was like, man, I hate I don't know how you guys. I hate watching myself. I don't.
Yeah,
It makes me. I think a lot of people feel like that. It makes them really uncomfortable. But from what I from what little pieces I could sit through or try to see like difficult scenes that I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get this to work. Like rewatching it and being like, you know what? Instead of beating this up, I'm actually really proud of this one little thing that no one would ever notice. But I'm okay with it, and I'm happy about it. And I was like, you know what? I'm proud of really proud of the work that I did personally. I'm obviously proud of collectively doing it and being excited, but like just personally being, you know what? Like, take a moment and actually like pat yourself on the back. That's a very hard lesson for me to learn. So I was feeling that, and then I got home, and it seemed like kind of everything froze, and my phone wasn't ringing. My friends were going off to Canada, back to Atlanta for the next job, and I was going back to waiting tables.
Yeah.
And it was this and then going to work, and then people being like, hey, you know, and then so it was this kind of like, this is cool, and it's brutal at the same time. And I don't want to sound shitty.
Yep.
It's hard. It's like, I don't ever want to seem like ungrateful.
No, it's a weird dichotomy because people who aren't in the industry assume you see somebody on a show for like episodes and episodes, like a season, and you're just like, oh, that's their life. They're an actor. That I know who this person is. And then
they made it.
Yeah, they made it. They did it. And you don't understand the industry it's little bubbles here and there. I have this. I had 3 back-to-back, or I just had 1, and then I had a year with nothing, or that's how it works. Right. But then nobody is like, well, what are they doing in between time? And then you come into a restaurant and see you, and then it's like, I would imagine it's this thing of like, great, like what I did made an impact and I was recognized, but like also, fuck, now I'm like getting them an iced tea. Like what? It's just weird, you know. Like I bet it would, but to them, because Alyssa and I, like I remember one time, some girls came in, they were freaking out, and like we could tell that they're not thinking that about you. Like it's in your head. I would imagine, you know, because to them they're like so excited that they saw you and that like you served them and they leave like excited. It's like. You couldn't watch the fans with this impression that their dreams were crushed and they're like, what? He's a server? They don't care.
They don't. But in my head, it's like, it's certainly that going to that place. And so it took me down this road that was, I mean, it took a long time to climb out of. And I was also in the, just in my personal life relationship, that just the show was ending. I came back. It's like my phone wasn't ringing. I got really depressed. Like my depression hit really bad. And so I ended up putting on about like, I think 30 pounds of just like depression weight. So, it was just, I mean, you know, when you're an actor, you know, we got to stay in shape and we got to stay, you know, and I'd always been so disciplined and
so much pressure
and regimented. And I just always had this thing where I was like, I crave the discipline. I like it. I like pushing myself. But I finally got to this place where I was like, you know what? I've been trying to be so perfect for everyone for so long. Then I got the thing and I tried to be perfect for that. I kept my mouth shut when, you know, and I stayed late and I got there early and I did the thing, and then they just sent me home, and so I was just in this really low place, and I just didn't want to like leave my house. I didn't want to it's just eating and hiding and drinking way more than I needed to. And then get this, after a few months of that, being like, okay, I'm ready to climb out of it. I'm going to call my manager and like come clean and be like, hey, you know, I've been in a really low place. That's why I haven't really been picking up the phone, or not picking up the phone, but like not responding to texts or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Right.
And, let's go have lunch. I really want to see you and talk to you.
Are you still with this manager, by the way?
No. And here's why.
Okay.
And so I show up.
Gotcha.
I'm in a low place, right? I kind of have like my arms up, and I'm feeling really vulnerable. This is someone who is like been with me for, you know, my manager for years and years, and has always had this like really intense kind of like idea of like what a man should look like, which now is this really controlling thing, right?
Yeah.
Would always ask me what I weigh, what I look like, send me pictures and weird shit.
Ugh.
I actually ended up losing. I got so in my head about vampires. I was I think in a matter of, and I didn't need to. I'm not saying anyone made me do this. My own anxieties and like where my head went once I saw kind of how skinny and small everyone was and the clothes they were putting me in. I think in a matter of 2 weeks, I lost 15 to 20 pounds.
Wow.
And that was just like a can of tuna a day, an apple, and
Dude.
cardio.
Wow.
Like full, like super skinny in that show. Anyway, I mean, this is 5 years now, and so that wasn't that big of a deal. Anyway, I got home, put on that weight and some, was just not making great decisions. And so I wanted to confide in the one person I had.
Yeah.
I had a relationship that was going south. My friends were all off in other parts of the world filming stuff. And I was just, hey, like, here I am, broken. Someone I've been with for like 7 years. I trust you.
Wow.
Like, this is where I'm at. Show up, and it's like 3 or 4 minutes into the damn thing. And he just looks at me like disgustingly. And he's like, I can't believe you. You look like you, word for word, you look like you fucking ate yourself. You're disgusting.
Oh, God.
Marco.
I swear to
my
God. He goes,
How
"You're
old is this guy?
I want to say in his 40s.
What?
Jesus.
I won't say his name, but very successful, and we really did some good shit together. And but instead of being like, "Hey, I'm here as a friend, and you're in a low place," like the first thing he said to me was how fucking awful I looked. Word for word, "You look like you ate yourself. You're disgusting." And that was that. And
I have chills. That is like,
I left that meeting, and I think I went and got a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
I just fucking drank. Like, it was the most, I'd never been so
oh my God,
torn up, because I had already spent enough. It was finally climbing out of his shell, and that was sort of the first, from someone who I admired and someone who I trusted with like my. So it was like the ultimate feeling of feeling worthless.
Yeah.
And so.
And like you were in this place by yourself, and you're trying to get yourself out of it, and you're thinking like, this is just in my head. And then to have an external person like affirm all the shit you've been telling yourself.
Yep.
See, this is like something that people need to. I think a lot of people think that this, and it is disproportionate. It happens to women, but like this shit is men in the industry too. This isn't like.
Oh yeah,
it's everybody.
It's a real the image and the business of it and all that is so. I just hope that younger people who are getting into it, no matter what your physicality is, that is up to you. And if you want to be a little bigger, you want to be a little smaller, like. That should never be up to anyone else to dictate. And if if you were someone like me who made a drastic change because of the way they were feeling and treating themselves, and that's a conversation to be had appropriately, but it was one of those things where like I was like, I'm never gonna come back. So that in a nutshell was my SOS moment.
I was gonna say, I was like, this might be your SOS moment coming out of this, right?
How did you get out of that?
I had to, and I'm ashamed to say that I spent like way too much time in the dark place that I had fallen into.
I think that's very human. But
yeah, I went a little. I got real morbid and kind of just turned off everything. I isolated, and I wouldn't see family, speak to friends. I wouldn't go to auditions. That guy dropped me, and then he convinced my agents to drop me. So they dropped me on the same day.
You gotta be kidding me.
Not even kidding. Not even. I think it was a couple weeks later.
Oh
it was
my
like,
God.
Jesus.
It was like, hey, listen, like I think it was like his assistant too. Was like, not even a heartfelt like, hey, listen, wish you the best. Like. Basically, fuck you. And then 5 minutes later was the agency call. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so he's gone, and we are too.
Wow.
And so I was like, it was on. I was like, I'm going to be so self-destructive because I've tried to be so disciplined and, like, hold myself accountable, do the right thing. And it was working until it wasn't. And then so I was like, well, fuck it. And no disrespect, I'm not going to name anyone by name, but I've seen so many people who are just I mean, really not dedicating themselves to that level of discipline and commitment to their work, and all they do is party, and then all they do is book.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like,
right.
And so I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll be like that. And it was just the worst decision I had made, and it really woke me up a lot, and it made me want to start talking to people about what mental health might mean to them, because I think people hear that word and they get a little uncomfortable, because they're like, I mean, like, oh, you're broken, or you have some weird thing, and
like
it might be taboo, So
no, not at all.
People think like it's a I mean, I understand, like, there's a very strong importance to diagnosis, but at the same time, it like makes people think it fucks with how everything is thought of. Like, I think I would venture to say, this isn't like a professional opinion, but I feel like most humans like touch on depression to various levels at points in their life. Like, I've definitely been depressed, and like, that's not a thing. I've never been diagnosed with it. So then it's like people are afraid of. They're afraid.
We know
of
the feeling, right? We know that tumultuous feeling of. I just know when I couldn't. I mean, to the thought of even having to get up and like make myself food was like. I couldn't move. I was so frozen in place almost with my emotions that it really dictated every single day. It was like it was like being in a cave, and if I moved, I would have to deal with things. Yeah. So being like, it felt like a clenched fist constantly for months. It was like this rock, and it would just sit and I just, would find different means and ways to try and not deal with it. And then it got to a point where I was like, okay, if I can look at this elephant in the room, take accountability for some of the decisions I have made to make it worse, and say, I'm not perfect, and say, I'm going to accept A, B, and C. I can't live. I hope that anyone who goes through hardship in not even just professionally, but in their lives, where someone, let's say like this gentleman was to me, just really ugly, and to someone who's vulnerable, and to an artist especially, there's a great phrase that if you walk around with like that hatred and anger, it's like lighting yourself on fire. And so I think holding on, like letting go of resentments, like learning how to take responsibility for what I can control, has been a great lesson. And I only started really realizing the power of that when I turned 30 a couple years ago. So it took a while to understand that what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, and that if we allow anybody to capitalize on those, then we're allowing them to. So it's like, it's okay to have boundaries. You can stand up for yourself. If you have an agent or if you have a manager, they're belittling or they're making you want to look a certain way, or they're subtly kind of catty, or it's perfectly okay to bring it up, squash it. Okay, next question. It's what you let people, just in the last couple, what you let people get away with is what they'll always get away with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's in relationships too. That's in the work world. That's just in our day-to-day lives. Yeah. Well, I'm not one for confrontation, like aggressive confrontation, but if I just say, hey, you know what? That one thing that you said made me feel this way, and it's done, and you don't have to like walk around for like a week and be like, why did that really mess up my day, So, and just with anxiety too, I think it's important for people to find creative outlets and not let people put them into like a box, Like for me, it was really daunting because everyone wants me to be still to this day, even, which is, I'm grateful, but like reps and stuff like that always want me like, you're going to be like this broody guy that the girl's going to fall for. And, you kind of like, like, kind of always look like this, and you're always just like, whatever. And it's like I'm in my heart, like I'm a Paul Rudd, like and it's like, that's where I find my happiness. So it's like, you have to be okay with what it is that like made you want to do it in the first place. You know, not everyone's gonna end up being
and like not like not attaching. I guess remembering that, like, say you're in a situation with a shitty manager like that, or the fear is like, well, if I don't have him, I have to find a whole new manager, and I have
anybody.
to find, like, and it's just a thing of the fear of not having what you have. But if what you have is making you feel like shit, then why are we afraid to not have it? Like, I'd rather have, it's so much easier said than done. This isn't like, because we all go through this, but it's like, wait, so I'd rather not have to deal with this and not like see myself this way, not have this gross feeling when this person is like helping me with my career, air quotes, but like then, and start from zero and find a situation where I do feel good about, I do feel supported, I feel loved, I feel inspired, because it's not easy to find, especially in entertainment industry. Like everybody will say, you read in so many interviews, musicians, actors, like people who have quote unquote really made like A-list people, you know, and it's like everybody says it's the team around you. It's the team you have around you. It's the team you have around you, because we can do so much on our own, and it is important. It all starts with who we are. But like, if you have that, if you're that rooted in what you need and who you believe yourself to be, then
that is it. That is such a really, it sounds so small, but it isn't. Human beings and being a participant in the conveying of human relationships when you're an actor, the kind of base questions that you ask as an actor when you like read something is sort of the same base questions that I think we ask in our lives with our normal relationships. What does this person want? What do I want? How does this person receive love and affection? How do I receive love and affection? It takes some kind of understanding to do so. And once you find that sweet balance of like, I understand how you receive me, you know, you understand how I receive you, it makes it easier to have conversations when something's bothering you, rather than turn it into resentment, which I am totally guilty of at that point in my life, and holding it like it was this like ball of hot lava, and every day walking around with it like it was like this thing that like I'm gonna hold on to this thing that's killing me because fuck you, because I got anger.
Yeah, it's like you're holding on to this weapon that you could use, but really it's just burning your hand the whole time.
And the other person could give two shits. They dropped you, you know, like in my case, they dropped me. I got that one phone call. I got that shitty, like, you're a fucking loser and you're fat now and see ya. And it's like, maybe they thought about me once, twice, you know, but I'm sitting there every day as like, it's this like burden and like this almost like, you don't get it. You don't know what I've been through. I did this, that, everything perfectly. I went and got the show, and then I did this, and like you know, it's you're only feeding in more into that person's like side of the argument, and like the sooner that like we can, I think, just analyze what it is in the situation that's bothering us, what we can talk about, and like especially stuff with like mental health, if something that you can't rationalize why it's bothering you, if you can communicate, if you can at least try to convey that something feels that way that day, then you don't have to it's not your burden to bear anymore. You know, like if you have like, for instance, like with dating, if I have a partner that I can't explain to her why I can't breathe that day, and it feels like there's this 1 ton thing on my chest, I feel okay now that I don't have to live in this kind of like macho society where you're always like, I'd be like, hey, this is kind of where I'm at today, and I just wanted to let you know so you don't think I'm like pulling away or like however that might convey, because some days for me is, and I think for everybody, it's like some days, I think the common misconception with mental health is like some days you're feeling a certain way, and that's okay. Like, forgive yourself already for feeling like that, because you're a fucking human being, and that's okay. And you don't have to apologize for it. However, it is important that you communicate it. It's important that every kind of realm of your life, that you're able to communicate it.
And that you, I guess, which is what you're saying, but that you let yourself feel it. Like there are coping mechanisms that are healthy that you can, use to try to get yourself out of it. But at the same time, it's a fine line between that and then just brushing it under the rug and brushing it under the rug. And that's obviously not.
And not facing it.
Yeah.
And I say that from a point of just experience and not losing that time, but I gave up a lot of probably really precious time that I could have done better things with, punish myself for the acts of someone else, so I have like ultimate control.
Yeah, but you also maybe needed that experience to grow from and realize what you didn't want or what didn't serve you.
Yes.
So
I had to learn. I had to relearn. It was bizarre. It was almost like, I don't know. It felt like pouring water on a circuit breaker. Like it just everything kind of fizzled out when that happened, because I couldn't fathom that someone would say that to me ever.
Yeah.
Someone who was like, I
someone
will
on your
always go
side.
above and beyond. I'll always go the extra step. You'll never catch me off guard. And here I was, vulnerable and kind of in a place, and that person is like capitalizing in a fight. Like I was down, and that guy was just beating me and beating me.
Wow.
And so,
what are some of your like tools that you use or that you've learned to like help yourself when you feel that way? Because it's not a thing that no one ever gets to a point where you just never have those days,
Yeah. For me now, I'm grateful that I don't want to take this from anybody who's in recovery or a situation with substance, but I removed alcohol was a big thing from my life, and that just only furthered my really belittling thoughts about myself, and my anxiety would always be through the roof, and just in general, just even socially, whatever. It was just like I just started there as kind of like a trial and realized that I was much more level with my life, and but I'm a huge fan of music. I beat my body up. I like to work out, and for me, there's some kind of weird satisfaction in like causing myself like physical pain to be better. And it's hard to explain, and it sounds like ridiculous, but it's like I get up. It's the first thing I do. It doesn't matter if it's quarantine or not. It's like I'll be up 5:30, and I go on a run and kind of just let it rip for an hour or two.
Yeah.
And get some endorphins going, and that's kind of like a weird thing, but creatively, I love watching classic movies too. I love I'm a sap. It
I
sucks for my dating life because I have this idea of like what love is, like what like the 50s and 60s and the black and whites.
Yeah.
And everything was like, I don't give a damn, darling. I'm spending my life with you, and it's like. I go on like Raya or Bumble, and it's like the first thing is like what moon is your Aquarian whatever in, and like and I'm like, what,
you're an old soul.
Yeah. It's just like I'm just like, oh man, we just like go on a walk and like look at flowers and like like everything. I don't know, I've just felt so like beaten up by like the dating world now. Or it's like the opposite, where like it's like I just like, as a silly side note, it was like I remember like matching with like a girl recently ish, and she just hated the fact that I was on that show and just like wouldn't let it down.
What?
She just wouldn't let it down. She just was like, oh yeah, you're on that fucking show, like just always like. Look, do you want to you accepted, you clicked right or whatever, put a smiley face.
She like trying to flirt with you, but like
I don't know, but it just wasn't
it's a job.
working.
It's like it's so bizarre.
Like, oh my god.
That's so weird.
Or one girl was like, what did she say? I think one girl asked me what I made in episode the first 3 minutes of the date.
Okay.
Pretty great. And then
was this on
girl,
Raya? Were they other actors? Were they just like interested in like?
No. Now they've kind of broadened the Raya scope, so it's like it's not as actory as it I feel like it used to be.
Yeah.
And then one girl was like, with like, all thought this was like a really hilarious joke, was like, because you're like a D-list celebrity.
Oh,
and I was
what?
like,
oh my God.
And I was just like, I was mortified. I was like, oh, first of all, thank you for calling me a celebrity, but like, but I was just like, oh man, this sucks.
It's not fun.
Like,
be like, what does that make you?
I've had some very
Z-list?
interesting experiences post jobs.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's funny.
What
though.
are some weird, like, I don't know if you're talking like fan stories or like weird DMs or like.
Oh
yeah.
So there was this one woman who she first of all was like in the beginning, right? Like it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, right, when I was doing the thing, and it was like, hey, like, you want to see pictures of my feet? And I was like,
fucking feet.
no, like I don't want to see pictures of your feet. And so I was just like, oh my God, it's ridiculous. Then it was like, can I see pictures of your feet?
Wow.
And then I was like I didn't respond. You can kind of see, like, you can see what it says without accepting or whatever. So and then it started getting a little more like ballsy. Then it was like here's like my toe.
Oh my God.
Like a tease. Like, here's just the big toe. Like, do you want to see the rest?
What?
And then there was one where it was like I don't know what she put on. I don't know if it was coconut oil or olive oil. It was all shiny.
On her toe?
And it's like on her foot. It was the full foot this time.
Jesus.
And so it became like a thing between me and my friends with like, what did the foot lady say today? It was just this ongoing.
Jesus.
Until I finally was like, I can't even. I have like, this person just has to get off my page.
Well, oh my God. Well, before we let you go, like, what is your
Yeah.
relationship with acting now?
I appreciate you asking that, because I really fell out of love with the idea of it, because I really got disheartened after that experience with my reps. And I was in a really intense romantic relationship with my ex-girlfriend that really took it out of me, and I had to step back. And somewhere in the last, I'd try to say like 6 months, I started waking up and feeling like I was like 23 again when it comes to acting. I felt really optimistic. I feel really good about it. I feel like, because in all honesty, I was ready to be like, you know what? Into this decade, it didn't really go the way that I had really wanted it to, which is the most ridiculous thing. If you're going to be an artist, there's no time frame. Get that out of your head.
Yeah.
I was supposed to have been Brad Pitt by 27. That was the goal.
Same.
But yeah,
Same.
but you have all these life-changing experiences that I never thought I would have, and now I just want to be good, and I want to work, and I don't have this like grandiose expectation that I think I once had.
Yeah.
So I think I have like at least probably 2 or 3 years more in the tank of like figuring it out, or retooling my reps, or retooling my image, or
Are you repped right now?
I am repped right now, and I
good.
have some really great people. So
Good.
those conversations I've been having, but now, you know what the cool thing is now, after all of this experience and this kind of image that I really had to stick to in my early to mid 20s, all that's gone. So now I get to say, hey, I'm 32.
Yeah.
I feel great, and I know I look young, but there's something else in there that's much more. So I'm coming in. I was very fortunate where I kind of came in and said, hey, this is where I'm at in my life. If you're in, you're in. If you're not, then we don't have to do this. And I'm not gonna disrespect you, but I'm not gonna cater to like you needing me to be something that I'm not. And fortunately, that was very well received. And now I have some really awesome people, and I feel like I get to start again.
That's good.
So we'll see what the next couple of years will bring. And if not, then like, I can always grow my hair back out and be like a death metal rock star.
Exactly. That's perfect.
Always. That's amazing. Thank you so much for everything, Marco.
Yeah, Marco, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah,
I think
I hope
this is like...
I hope I didn't ramble too much.
No,
I know
not
I do
at
that
all.
a lot.
No.
I think it's important, everything that you're saying, because as people, you know, like me, like I've never gotten to that part, you know, that recurring, you know, I would love to have that opportunity. And there's people that haven't even made the move to LA because they're afraid, and they let the anxiety or that voice tell them that they're not good enough, and they let the people that tell them that they don't look good enough to be an actor, or they don't fit this mold, that they can't do it. And you know, with conversations like these, I think that could help a lot of people grow and navigate through this, because it's such a thankless industry, but also rewarding at the same time, because of those moments of bliss, because of those moments. And it's not necessarily because, I have a fan base now, or these people want to take my picture, or whatever it is. It's whatever you find. It could be that audition, or even like a reading of something. It could be something so minuscule.
Yeah, I always say that whatever brought you out to do the thing, to pursue this craziness, never let whatever that moment was for you go. Like, remember what that was. If it was just one scene in a movie when you were a kid, if it's silly, but you hold on to it, whatever has that weight for you, it always has to be the thing that you go back to, because you hit it on the head. No one really will. You know, you did a good job when no one has to, like I said, when no one has to come up and tell you really anything other than you get to go home for the day.
Yeah.
No one's going to come pat you on the back and say, "Oh, you were such a great actor today." You know, if you do get that, that's amazing. That is just really wonderful. And
you'll always remember it.
It's just not the norm, though. Like, you're never going to be like, "Oh, let's talk about how great you were today." It's like, okay, done. Like, we have so many other things to do in this puzzle.
I mean,
so
that's
as long
the
as
thing.
it
Like,
resonates with you personally, then I think it's absolutely worth it. If it isn't, if you could see yourself doing anything else, even have a hesitation, do yourself a favor and don't put yourself through all of this.
it's true, you know, and it's like you basically said it. If you're doing it for anyone else other than yourself, yes, you want to get the audition, you want to get the role, you want to, or whatever it is for music, any industry, like. You want other people to acknowledge and approve of you on some level. That's not fake. But at the same time, like, if you're doing it at your core for any other reason other than, like you said, like, for me, I'm like, there's nothing else that I want to do. There's nothing else. And so I can be beat up. I can feel like shit. But at the end of the day, what else? Do I want anything else more? No. And when no one's in the room, do I still feel like doing this? If no one's watching me, if no one has seen, if I don't have recent content up, am I still that like 8-year-old girl that's like at home wanting to do this? There
you go.
But
does it still count, right?
Yeah, does it still count? Yeah.
Don't let anyone who's also with the social media thing, like, don't ever let that be your driving force. Don't let amount of followers or posts, or like, I didn't put up like a skit today, or
I mean, my agents told me, like, oh yeah, you've lost many jobs because you don't have thousands of followers. Like, I've been told that.
That's the most ridiculous thing
Still
I've ever
with
heard.
this agent.
And if don't listen to them, this will all kind of be I think they're hiring people off Instagram and YouTube. I think they'll learn pretty quick that the level of no disrespect, but like you get what I'm saying. The caliber of like sort of artists that you're gonna get I think this is all gonna be kind of it'll weed itself out eventually. This won't be the norm.
And one of the things that I remember being told when it comes to just being an artist and how critical we get of ourselves is it's that balance between, like we were saying earlier, learning your technique but also you cannot be so in your head. And so the thing I remember being told was you cannot be the observer and the doer at the same time. So you're either going to be the artist you're either going to be doing your shit and that gets you success, or you are forever observing yourself, and that will hinder you. You cannot continuously, you check in once in a while and observe what you've done. But if you're always observing yourself while you're doing it, you don't get the same level of success. You have to detach and just do. And then stuff goes by and then you look back and then observe and you're like, wow, I did that. But in the moment, you don't have time to do both. You can't be both.
No. That's a very good point. It's a lot of discipline and repetition.
Did we lose Marco? I love right at the end we lose Marco.
I was going to do the
No.
Whoa, what happened?
He'll come back.
Fund. Yeah.
Well,
Oh, no.
Until he comes back, we can do our charity nonprofit.
So just start saying it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so for this episode, we chose the Actors Fund. This was founded in 1882. The Actors Fund is a national human services organization here to meet the needs of our entertainment community with a unique understanding of the challenges involved in a life in the arts. Services include emergency financial assistance, affordable housing, healthcare, and provide ongoing support services for issues like work and personal stress, anxiety, depression, and life transitions.
Oh,
you're back.
Whoa, what happened?
We were just going over the charity, which is our Actors Fund.
Okay, sorry, I totally interrupted.
No, you didn't.
I just
it's
finished.
Totally fine.
That was perfect. That was so funny. It was like you were just frozen, and then you're like, whoa, what?
It's a good little gift for people that are watching. But to donate to the Actors Fund, please visit actorsfund.org.
Yes.
And for next week's episode, we are going to be joined by director and filmmaker Kenneth Castillo, and he's going to share how he creates a space to highlight Latino stories in an industry that is desperate for new voices, yet is consistently unable to propel them. And as a Latina woman, as a Latina woman in the industry, like, I am dying to have this conversation because I've had a lot of unique instances of being severely typecast or just, I don't know, like, not humiliated, but asked to do weird shit and like treated differently.
Kind of disrespectful.
Disrespect, yes.
What's what I'm thinking of? They're being ignorant.
Probably.
It's like, I had like one guy tell me one time, just riffing on this. Sorry,
I
just remember this one time, just being like a mixed Latino myself. Like,
same.
One guy was like, like you in this scene, like you're in your house making some burritos. What? And I was just like, that's like so like that's like, I remember like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm from California.
They eat. I really eat burritos every day.
Like, right.
Wow.
Jesus. Yeah. So join us for that episode. It'll be a doozy, just like this one. Thank you so much, Marco. You are a treat. You are a gift. If you want to check out everything that he's done, check out his IMDb, but also go to his Instagram if you want to reach out, at Marco James M.
That's me.
Yeah.
Come hang out. I'm around.
Come hang out.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so I feel so honored. Sometimes these little stories and gems kind of just get lost in sort of the DNA of who we are, and it's really fun to kind of go back and like relive them with a healthy mindset and get to talk about it. So thank you so much for letting me do that today.
Thank you.
I'm so appreciative.
It's such a gift to hear, and it's good for my sanity too, to hear other people that go through it in different waves, and it's helpful.
Sometimes that's all it takes to know that we just aren't alone, and like our unique experiences aren't just us.
Absolutely.
All of us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you again. You're the best.
Thank you, Marco.
Yes, happy quarantine to all.
And a happy quarantine. Molly, want to sign us out?
All right. Well, thank you for listening. Check us out on Instagram at the SOS Pod, Twitter, YouTube, SOS with Molly and Alyssa, and tune in next week as we turn meltdowns into magic.